a shell or something. How interesting. Boom. What happens? He's shot dead. Now, if you want trouble in Samoa, what's the fastest way to get in trouble? Goof with one of those chiefs, right? And what happened was, the French said they were being stoned. Everybody saw the chief die. They're, wow, get these guys out of here. They start throwing rocks. The French retreat while they're firing their muskets into the crowd. Can you imagine how many Samoans died that day? With guns coming at them? I'll bet you it was a lot more than 11. Yeah? So I said, look, this was a tragic cultural misunderstanding. And you have nothing to feel sorry for. Your people behaved honorably. I have multiple sources for this, okay? So what they call a massacre bay, I'd like to have renamed as misinterpretation. You know, what a sad thing. But what I want to suggest is that this was a great blessing to Samoa. Because it was a voyage, really until John Williams landed in 1830. Okay? Now, the type of palami sailing around, and I'm not anti-palami, but what sort of guys were sailing around them?
Sailors, rockers.
Sailors, rockers, they call them whalers, blackbirders. These were guys who could just go into villages and grab people, and slavery, take them off to Australia. It was a bad crowd, okay? Totally bad crowd. And with great, great, great respect of Hawaii, which I love. What happened in Hawaii? I mean, the Hawaiians, unfortunately, became dispossessed of them, right? I mean, it's a tragedy, okay? That happened in Samoa. No, Samoans are sovereign. Tongaans are sovereign. They own their own land. They own their own culture. There's nobody telling them what to do. Because when John Williams came and landed in Sakapali, he waited until Malietoa himself came out to the boat. He would not set foot on Samoan soil until he had the permission of Malietoa. I love Malietoa's response. And John Williams says to him, and of course, what was John Williams' boat's name? Can you remember? O Savali Olafili, the messenger of peace. And what Williams did is he said to Malietoa, I want to come and preach the gospel to you. I want to share with you the message of Christ. We will obey your culture. We will not do anything unless you let us to. Malietoa, I love him because he says, well, yeah, that'd be great. He said, I'm paraphrasing here. He said, we do have this little war going on at the Polo. And wars in those days were sort of like what we call Super Bowl. Okay? NFL. Got to finish that. But then after that, you can preach to it. So we gave permission. Williams went on shore, carried ashore by the people, brought Rarotongan missionaries. And then he told the Palangis with him, here's the deal. Think about this if this had happened in Hawaii. He said, you cannot own land. You cannot change these people's culture. Your job is only to preach Christ and Him crucified. And you're not to interfere with their local politics. And then he moved any Palangi out in 5 years. So, in other words, church in Samoa started as a Samoan enterprise. And Samoa converted within 1830. The word in Hawaii, and we've lived in Hawaii for quite a while, is that the missionaries came to do good and did very well indeed. Yeah. Right? And you see who owns all the lands? The missionary families, okay? No, there's no missionary families in Samoa or in Tonga that own land. None. And so this is probably the most rapid mass conversion in the history of the world. The whole nation converted because Malietoa converted first. So I guess what I want to say is this was a tragic sacrifice for both the French and for the Samoans. But from their blood came a period of peace for Samoa, so that the first guy that came there was an incredibly enlightened person, John Williams, who I really respect, and what a great thing to show. 1880, Samoa suddenly enters into this weird colonial thing. We have America, we have England, we have Germany showing up, which whoever's warship was in Apia Harbor, or in Talanoa, that's who ruled the day. Finally, the Treaty of Berlin, 1889, there was a partition of Samoa into the western part of the archipelago, which became a German possession. Do you know why you like to eat sausages and feast? Do you know why you like grass payments? I mean, that's German, okay? And America was given rights to eastern Samoa. I want to talk about this for a second. So, American Samoa was ceded to the USA by chiefs and orators. In other words, this was a decision made by the chiefs and orators. I've read the original documents of secession. They're mind-blowing. First of all, the documents are written in Samoan. And it says in Samoan that the Samoan language is paramount in these documents. Secondly, the chiefs and orators say, we have been watching the Palangi nations fight, and we don't want any part of that. And we have chosen to go with America. So, American Samoa came into existence without a single bullet, a single blow, a single act of violence. This was a decision made by the chiefs and orators of Tutu. The 27 paramount chiefs signed the document with their names. In Samoan, Richard Gurr provided a translation. He spoke good Samoan, but I've been reading the original Samoan, and I want to tell you about this. 20 paramount chiefs. Manua was seated on the 16th of July, 1904, by King Tu'i Manua El Sala and his orators, in which he surrendered sovereignty. What did the Samoans give up? They said, we would like America to use this part of the archipelago, so think of what's today American Samoa, as a coaling station, as a military station. You may run our foreign policy. We will become subservient to your government. We will respect your government. However, and I really want to talk to Congressman Father Hawaiian, because I've been rereading these documents. I want to do a retranslation. Because what the documents say is astonishing. They say, and in return, you will care for Samoa forever. So I was down in Talanoa, the congressional team. One of the congressmen's guys said, boy, we're investing a lot of money down here. I said, you have no choice. I said, what? I said, you are personally, the government of America agreed to take care of forever the health and welfare of the Samoan people in return for them ceding their sovereignty. You've had air bases, you've had coaling stations, you've had naval things. The Samoans have met their obligation, and don't you ever say that you can back out of yours, because this is a great country. So, again, what I'm trying to tell you is from these documents, the government of the United States forever agreed to care for the Samoans. It's an astonishing thing. Would that we had a similar agreement with Hawaii and Native Hawaiians. Western Samoa different. It was a German possession until World War I. The Germans, and I love Germans. In fact, I was in Hamburg just 2 weeks ago. They had a lovely exhibition at the Museum of People and Culture on Samoa and Pearl Pacific. So, of course, I had to go check it out, go look at it, and saw some photographs. I mean, I'm digging in these German archives. Our people in Paliulipo told me their grandparents had a German film crew that took movies of it. So I've been going through Germany trying to find this film. I think it'd just be dynamite for our people to be able to see their ancestors. Germans were well regarded by the Samoans, not particularly vice versa, because the Samoans would not work for the Germans. And the Samoans couldn't be bought off. They wouldn't do it. And the Germans were really frustrated because they thought, oh, we're going to go down, we have these plantations, they even built a railroad. You know, there's a train from Apia to Nāfanua. And the Samoans, you know, this is something that's really cultural and it's deep, but I have never in my life seen people work harder than Tongans and Samoans. I've also never seen people goof off more than relax in Tongan Samoa. You know what I'm saying? It's like, when it's time to relax, you know, when it's time to work, you know, and the Germans just couldn't deal with that. Someone said, nah, we don't want your stuff, we don't want your money. Sorry, we gotta go play cricket. So the Germans were so frustrated, they started importing Melanesians, right? So we have Solomon Islanders. They started importing Chinese, right? They came, okay? So we got all these different mixes. But the German possession of Samoa was pretty interesting because the Germans, in their culture, they really think about stuff. And so the German companies that were there commissioned Augustin Cromer, an amazing anthropologist, to study the ethnology of Samoa. His 2-volume work, These Samoan Insular, is probably the most beloved book in the Bible because it has all the genealogies. It has all the legends. He went to every village. It's a wonderful work. It's a fantastic work. My daughter Mary, who's at Oxford doing her PhD in economic history, got into this. We started looking at his German text and the Samoan translations, and we found out that the Samoan, the oral Samoan, was accurate in the German translation of the words. What does that mean? Think about that for a second. This guy writes perfect High Chief Samoan, but his German is bad in terms of translating. He didn't write it. And so we started going to the cruise. Mary went to Stuttgart, got his diaries. We got his diaries. He's trying to write Samoan, and the diaries are like me, Tarzan, Hugh James, sort of Samoan, you've heard that sort of thing. And turning what's going on, it turned out he had some high chiefs that helped him write this. So she's just published an article on how Augustin Cromer, who was a great man, but that work, These Samoan Insular, should have had co-authors, and their names would have been Samoan. And I talked to my friend Tupuatua Thomas says he agrees. But the German possession of Samoa was benign. Western Samoans had a lot of affection for Germans. In fact, a lot of them, well, look around the country, you got names like Kyle and Retzlaff. And that's why we have a brass band. That's how we have, we have sausages. We have all this stuff. Cox Talanoa, thank you there. What happened in 1918 is, as soon as World War I was declared, New Zealanders invaded. Any Maori here, okay? This was tough. The Germans were shocked because they didn't fire shell into the gun. The Germans captured the German meteorologists at Pia Observatory and took it over, put in a garrison about 3,500 people. And New Zealand took